The Minnesota Timberwolves have gone through growing pains. And sadly, I don't think that growth is going to lead into a championships. And let's get right into why. And that's because of Julius Randle and the trade for him and getting rid of Karl Anthony Towns. Let's get right into it, right? This is coming from last night's game. Randall's going in, tries to get this lay, doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? It's a poor shot. Randall's going to do things like this. And it's weird because you're seeing the Timberwolves try and run Randall as if he's Cat, right? Because before, this would be Cat on the catch and shoot, right? Doesn't really hit. Now, obviously, Cat's going to miss shots too. That's not saying that Cat is, obviously a perfect shooter. But you can even see, right? They try and run actions for Randall as if, it's a plug and play. Like, you could just, replace what Cat does with Julius, and it's just going to be a one-to-one, and it's not. The spacing is awkward. At times, he doesn't, have the same, passing ability for even someone like a Rudy. Because I've talked about this many times on my channel. How I think, at the end of the day, Rudy and Cat worked out really well because Cat was incredible at feeding Rudy. He did a great job of being able to force the issue against, to try and get teams that have to respect him. And then the second he did, he could dump it to Rudy, get the easy dunk, and the possessions become easier. But I think when you see Randall have to really create for himself, things get a little ugly. Now, I will say I do like Randall as the one to get the O board, right? I love that his willingness to compete for it, go back up with it, and create. But then you'll see here, right? I think when it's something like this, I prefer a look like this for Randall. Is this a tough shot? Yes. But at least let it be a tough shot that somebody else worked to create and make. Because at the end of the day, right, Randall's averaging 27 and 4, 48 from the field, 35 from 3, 81 from the line. I just think at the end of the day, right, the counting stats aren't bad, but they're not that great, right? And the Wolves are 21 and 19. You're 18th in offense. You're 6th in defense. The difference is, right, Cat just a better offensive player than Randall. He'll occasionally get a tough shot like this, but that's part of the problem. And Randall prefers a tough bucket, right? Because it could be more aesthetically pleasing. He prefers the idea of, I can go for this bucket and it's tougher versus sometimes just trying to take the easy ones, right? So he'll go here, he gets, his little separation, gets a shot blocked, right? He has to be better on the gather for something like that, right? And Timberwolves fans, I'm sure y'all will let me know. Shout out to my guy, Josh, who does my thumbnails. Randall can get infuriating at times at the offensive end because he tries to play as if he is the best player on that team. And he's not. He's just not. And he still tries to play like he is. Because, right, there isn't that same playmaker that there was in a Brunson. So now it's in his head, it feels like he's I got to create. If I don't create, Ant's not that great at creating for others either. So I got to get my bucket my way. And it's not working. At the end of the day, this trade is a mistake. They pulled the trigger too soon. They got a little too antsy. And let's get into the second reason of what the Timberwolves can actually do to try and fix their season. Part of the blame here, I would argue, falls on Chris Finch for only one reason. He should have started Dante DiVincenzo from the beginning of the year as their point guard. Since he's begun starting, Dante's averaging 18, 5, and 5 on 43 from the field, 42 from 3 on 10 threes a game. So that's elite shooting, 79 from the line. And you might think, but Emster, what was he before? I'm glad you asked. He's averaging 10, 3, and 3 on 39 from the field, 36 from 3 on about 6 or 7 a game. So obviously became even significantly better on a higher volume. And then 83 from the line. I think Dante clearly has the age to him. They are a younger team. They need someone with speed. Conley doesn't provide that. This is beautiful, right? DHL from Randall, right? Does a good job of keeping Jackson Jr. on him. Edie comes over, and at that point, then he waits until Edie jumps, goes right back up. Rudy yams it down, right? I think, again, this is a deadly team when they can actually hit. But the problem is, Julius Randle is getting benched in clutch situations, right? Because he'll make a lot of, silly mistakes. Again, you'll see that ending lineup in the clutch be basically a mix of 3 guys are going to be there guaranteed, most likely, unless it's like a shooting situation. Rudy, J-Mac, and Ant. Then you're probably going to see Naz Reid. And then you'll see a mix of Dante or Conley, but I think Dante should go ahead and beat, like, I think Chris Finch, they're 4-2 since they've started him. So clearly it's working on the whole winning thing because you're 21-19. So without those 4 wins, right, y'all could be, it could be a very scary situation for this, Timberwolves team. But instead, right, because Dante has been, their starting guard, because he's been able to help push in transition, because he's been able to, right, play with a tempo that Mike Conley just can't do anymore, I think it's become obviously clear that Dante being the starter must remain this way. This is like a beautiful float, right? And again, it's because you could play with a pace and a tempo. Mike Conley comes up and it's just not as quick. Like, look how quick he comes off here, right? And dumps it to Gobert to create for Gobert, right? And then he gets that tough, little lay. These are things that would not be possible if it was not for, Rudy. Or not for Rudy, without Dante. Like, it's just not possible. So I think at the end of the day, Dante needs to start. Because I think that's probably also something that's holding this team back. That tempo, that pace. Because they're still a top 6 defense in the league, but you're 18th in offense. You're a below average offense, and you're an elite defense. At some point, you need to go back to being at least slightly above average. Like, they end up like 13-12, cool. That's a really good offense, and you can move. But this tempo, I think, is a big reason why it's hurting them. So I think the other reason that this team's going through the growing pains and why I might not think they're good enough is they don't have a good enough point guard. They drafted Dillingham. He hasn't even really been getting a lot of PT. And now you have Dante starting at guard. And then finally, you have their young superstar, Anthony Edwards, averaging 26, 6, and 4 on 44 from the field, 42 from 3 on 10 threes a game, which is elite. Like, that is Steph Curry video game numbers. That is ridiculous. And 84 from the line. So let's say you had to create the dream lineup right now. I think even Timberwolves fans might say it's going to sound crazy, but it'd probably be Dante, Ant, McDaniels, Reed, Rudy. That's your starting 5. Like, that is your dream 5. But Randall's getting paid a lot, right? He's off the books next year, but I don't know who they're going to go for, really. But let's get into Ant's diversification of scoring, right? Gets Randall here on the screen. I like that Ant's become more decisive as a scorer. I think what takes him to the next level is when he does this as a passer and a playmaker. Because before, right, like, I love this action. So let's get into this baseline out of bounds action really quick, right? Okay. Ball goes up to Rudy. Immediately at this point, Conley's, dragging his man along. Randall gets his screen. Okay, Kyrie's got to try and fight over it. Then Rudy comes up. Now, this is a bit of a tough shot because you got, Kyrie coming up behind you. You got Gafford going in. Okay, cool. So instead, Ant just steps back, pulls the 3. Right before, in the old Timberwolves days, even last year, Ant would have dribbled this out, waited 5 seconds, 4 seconds, then shoot. But instead, he's like, nope, I've got my shot, and I'm taking it, right? That decisiveness, I think, has been huge for him as a scorer, right? It makes it easier for himself, and then he'll have plays like this. Like, there's no point. That is just athleticism. There is nothing more you can do, right? And he'll have some tough middies, right? And it's like, okay, I don't know if that's really the shot you should have taken, right? Like, even here with Luka, okay, he decides he's going to attack. Cool. This is like a really difficult shot. And some of it is, right, he is a superstar in the making. He has to make them. He has to try and sometimes take them. But you don't got to do it in the first quarter, right? Like, just look at how many times. Now, this one makes sense, right? You got 2 seconds, 5 seconds, right? Like, there's only so much you could do. But why not? You already drove. My apologies. Just kick it to Dante. Instead, right, he tries to take this awkward, pull-up midi. Doesn't really connect. I think, again, Ant becoming a better playmaker and a passer, because I know you all know this, especially as Timberwolves fans. How many times have you seen Anthony Edwards where 1 to 2 of his assists out of like the 4 to 5 he'll get a game? It'll be he drives, last second realizes I can't go up with it, and he'll either dump it right down to a Randall or Gobert, or try and kick it out to the corner to like a Dante or a Naz Reid. At some point, I think you need to do better at it in terms of just immediately decide, I'm driving, kick and shoot, or pass, drive and kick. Or let's try and create through my midi game and try and pull in guys through, staggered screens off the ball. But either way, right, and part of that is Chris Finch too, because I think Chris Finch has done a really good job of getting Ant better as a scorer and decisive as a scorer. But I don't think he's done well at helping Ant then create for others. Because, right, they traded for Dillingham. They brought in Dante. You still have Mike Conley. But none of those dudes are good enough playmakers at this point in their careers to help Ant out. There's not. Ant's like Devin Booker in a way, and even Donovan Mitchell, where they're at their best, I feel like, when they can primarily focus on scoring and also for Ant defense. Right, when he can focus on the two simple things that he knows how to do best, I think that's when they're at their best. But when you're forcing him to also have to be the primary playmaker, that's where we see his struggles. That's why I think we see games where the shooting goes down, because he's trying so hard to create for others, and then himself, things get a little nasty. But without further ado, guys, this was Amsterdam Knows Hoops. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about the Timberwolves. I think this team, sadly, is going to be a second round out at best. I hope to get it together. Again, shout out to my guy, Josh, big Timberwolves fan. As always, guys, this was Amsterdam Knows Hoops. Peace out.